Zach Green was going to be a dad 3 times. Each time he imagined life as a father, and each time his hopes were shattered. In just 18 months, he and his ex-partner lost 3 babies during pregnancy. The world around him kept moving, but inside he was stuck, grieving in silence, burying himself in work and trying to pretend he was all good. In reality, he was living in a cycle of manic depressive episodes he couldn't escape, causing him to push people away and isolate himself, very nearly costing him his life. Along with therapy, the kitchen became his lifeline to recovery. Cooking was often the only thing that made sense, giving him an outlet that's become a career. Now a stepfather to 4 boys, Zach's navigating fatherhood in a way he never imagined and advocating for mental health support in remote communities. This is Zach Green.
Welcome to Youngblood, the volunteer video podcast dedicated to young men's mental health. I'm your host, Cal McPherson, and this is a platform for young men and their loved ones to share lived experience stories and show that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Suicide is the #1 killer of young people, and changing that starts with speaking up. So let's do it. This show touches on some tough topics that may provoke strong emotions. If you find anything in this chat distressing, please do whatever you need to do to look after yourself. Zach, when were you first told that you were going to be a dad, and how did you feel about that?
I was told by my partner at the time, just over a text message, really. Like, she rang me. Oh, she texted me, and then I rang her, and she's like, "I've got something to tell you." And then she sent me through a photo, and yeah, it was a positive pregnancy test. Immediately, I took off from work that day, and yeah, wanted to be with her and celebrate with her. Obviously, it was going to be our first child, but immediately it kind of just changes your dynamic as a person. You're like, I don't know, it switches something in your mind, like just like that, more responsibilities coming into you for you. And yeah, it was just, yeah, it was, yeah, one of my moments that, being told you're going to be a dad, I'll never ever take away from myself. So yeah, it was just, yeah, I just can't explain the feeling when someone tells you you're going to be a dad for the first time. It just changes you automatically overnight.
How did you feel about the prospect of being a dad? Was that something that you've always wanted?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a dad. I guess, you know, like I've got nieces. Yeah, I guess I've always wanted to be a dad. I think I was kind of born to be a dad. Like I'm very nurturing, and it's something that I always wanted to, kind of be. I always wanted to have a child of my own, and I didn't know when that was coming. So for me, it was something that something to really really look forward to at that time. To be told that you're going to be a dad, and then come with that, everyone celebrating, everyone wanting to understand what's it going to be, and is it going to be a boy or a girl? And then yeah, it just makes you more excited to.
Tell me about that first pregnancy.
The first couple of weeks was kind of a breeze, really. Like, we did our ultrasounds, and our son was healthy. And then it all changed in a matter of minutes. It was, I still remember the night very vividly. We weren't doing anything out of the ordinary from our, normal night. Like we went and got takeaway from La Porchetta, which is obviously an establishment in Victoria. And I usually get the chicken parma in Victoria, or chicken parma in WA, or wherever you want to say it. But yeah, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of changed within minutes. My partner at the time was came out of the bathroom, and she said something was terribly wrong, and I didn't know how to take it. But next thing you know, she's in the back of the ambulance, and yeah, I'm driving behind, going, my worst fears are going to come to fruition. Yeah, so it was that first pregnancy was a whirlwind of emotions. You get told that you're going to be a dad, and then get that taken away with you from a doctor that, and I think doctors are amazing people, but you get told by a stranger that was the doctor that you're not going to be a dad anymore. Then it rips you. It rips you to.
What was the aftermath of that, like supporting your partner and then also trying to come to grips with it yourself?
Um, I think right now, like you know, as I look back on, when we lost our first child, obviously the attention was on her, and that's fair enough. You know, a mother and a child have a different, unique connection because the mother's carrying the child around for 9 months, and I guess I had to put my kind of emotions aside and my grief aside, and support her in any way I could. 2 days after we lost Elijah, which was our first son, I went back to work. But being back at work because I wasn't in the kitchen at the time. I was taking a break and I was working at the hospitals that we lost our kids. So I was going back into a trauma experience because I had to get an income to be able to provide for my partner and I because she wasn't working. She went through a hell of a lot of grief, but I had to kind of park my grief aside for the time being and be with her. So yeah, obviously my mum and my dad kind of, really wanted to see how I was going, but I kind of put this mask on, brother, where I just didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to tell them how I was feeling because all my energy was going to supporting my partner at the time and then also working at the same time. So I didn't really have a moment of where I could just sit in my emotions. I just had to get on with the job really and just be there for my partner and work as well. And I think that was the hardest part is going to work and seeing newborn babies come out with their, with fathers and mothers, that new mothers and fathers, and then going back to, our home and then seeing my partner at the time, like just, non-existent. Just didn't want to really talk to anyone, etc. And yeah, it was really hard the aftermath of losing a child.
How did you think your mental health was at the time? Are you someone who's been self-aware about that stuff previously? Like, did you feel like you were doing all right, or you felt like you weren't doing all right?
No, I think mental health for me has always been like say Rumble in the Jungle or something. The greatest fight with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, etc. I think it's always been a rumble in the jungle with me where I've tossed and fought round one, fought round two, and never really looked at my mental health until only the last probably 5 to 6 years. I really kind of concentrated on my mental health, and back then I think I was severely depressed and I was going through manic episodes, but I didn't really want to show that because I wanted to be there for my partner at the time and be that strong person. So I kind of like faked it, faked my emotions and faked my mental health. So yeah, Zach's doing fine, but in the end, I was crumbling inside, and my mind was going 100 miles an hour to even comprehend what was actually happening. So, yeah, my mental health really took a toll in 2015, and I didn't pay attention to it because I felt like if I paid attention to my mental health at that time, I was being selfish, and that was my thought process. So yeah, my mental health took a massive toll, and I was going through manic episodes in silence, and I just didn't want to tell anyone.
Give us an example of your experience with the manic episodes.
So the manic episodes was my mind going a million miles an hour, making impulsive decisions on the fly without understanding the consequences that came with that. The other things that happened in my manic episodes was literally I would cry. I would cry in silence. I wouldn't show that to anyone. So it was almost like I was having like mental breakdowns every day, but no one knew. No one knew. Like no one knew what was actually happening. I was having mental breakdowns each and every day in silence. And those manic episodes were hectic. Like the consequences that came with those manic episodes have affected me for a long period of life because those manic episodes made me lose people in my life, people that loved and cared for me and people that I loved and cared for as well. So those manic episodes were done in silence, and it was just that impulsiveness, the impulsiveness of trying to be someone I wasn't because I was too afraid to tell people how I was feeling.
How were you at supporting your partner? Did she feel like all your effort to support her was worth it, or did she very much feel concerned for you? Because we know that you can't really take good care of anyone unless you're taking good care of yourself. And your attitude makes perfect sense. And I think so many men would resonate with putting someone else before themselves. But if you do that too much, as you've experienced, you fall in a hole where you can't really help someone in the way that they need. What was your partner's experience of you going through this stuff and hiding it? I mean, women are pretty intuitive. She must have picked up on it.
Yeah, she picked up on it. I think it was a couple of months after we lost Elijah. She picked up on it because when you go through like manic episodes or mental health challenges, it's exhausting, but it's also exhausting keeping up a different persona of who you are. So obviously I was faking it, faking it that I was okay. And um, yeah, and women know what's actually happening until they actually realize, they know what's happening. Like, and my partner was really concerned for me when she saw me at my darkest. I think it was a couple of months after we lost Elijah, and I was at work, and then I went missing. I went missing from work. And I found this little place, this old abandoned warehouse, or this extension they were doing at work, like renovations, and they found me curled up in a ball. And that's when it kind of hit her that I just wasn't doing well. Yeah, it was that. And I remember it so like it was yesterday that, um, yeah, I messaged her and I said, I love you. And then all of a sudden, yeah, no one could find me. No one could literally find me or where I was at work. Like I just had disappeared. And then I remember her rocking up to work, and yes, everyone was trying to find me. And then they saw me on the security cameras go out to the renovation place, the extension that they were doing. And yeah, I was curled up in a ball. I just couldn't move. I was frozen. Yeah. And that's when the concern kind of popped up for her because obviously the last couple of months previous to those months was all about her and how she was feeling. And obviously, as I said, I had to kind of brush it under the table of how I was feeling. But that was the kind of pinnacle where she's like, all right, Zach's not dealing with this well. So that was probably the pivotal moment where she knew I wasn't doing well is when I went missing from work one day and just couldn't do it anymore.
And where did you guys go from there? Did she support you? I mean, you obviously picked yourself back up and tried again for another child. How did that go?
Yeah, it's always been interesting in my life. So whenever I've always had manic episodes, and I can't explain it. It's almost like just everything piles up and I just go snap. Not so much anymore now. So, for example, over the last 5 to 6 years, I've been working really hard on myself. I see a psych nearly every week, or when I'm busy, I'll see my psych once a month. But before that, when I had a manic episode, after the manic episode, I was great, because I let it all out, and I felt like I was great. I was back on top of the world, and so that was that kind of destructive cycle. And within those moments of understanding that I was okay, and after the manic episode, but I wasn't really okay, but in my mind, because I had a manic episode and I let everything out, I was fine. And then obviously we tried for another baby that year, and my partner got pregnant. On the first, we found out on the 1st of December that she got pregnant. In 2015. And then we lost our child on December the 20th, 2015, and then the cycle just repeated itself. So I was in a cycle, had a manic episode, out of the cycle, was happy with where I was at in life, but not really understanding. It was like a volcano that was ready to erupt, and I didn't see it, and I didn't recognize it. And then obviously going through that turmoil again of losing another child on December the 20th, and that child was an ectopic pregnancy. So yeah, it was just it was that cycle again. It was kind of rinse and repeat where I had to look after her because she had surgery, and then just that I wasn't looking after myself. But then that second pregnancy, obviously, she forgot that I could hide a lot of things when it came to my mental health, and then it was just that rinse and repeat where I had another manic episode again, like 4 or 5 months later. And then 2016, we found out we were pregnant again with our third child, or our second son, Zane, and the cycle happened again. We lost Zane in the same circumstances as we lost Elijah, and that cycle repeated again.
Losing 3 children in 18 months is something that very few people could imagine happening. Did it make you bitter? Were you angry at the world? Was that part of it?
Yeah, I was furious with the world. I was a very angry person. Like, not anything toward my partner. I was just angry with myself. I was just angry. Like, by then, my mates had a couple of kids, and I just couldn't be around their kids. I got invited to first birthdays, and I couldn't do it. I'd rock up. It'd be awkward for me. Not awkward for them, but it would be very awkward for me. Like, I see this, their kid or their daughter or son having a first birthday. I'm like, well, that could have been Elijah, that could have been Zane. And all the what ifs started to kind of happen. Like, what if we did this differently? Or what if we did that? Would it, etc. And then I started blaming myself. And then I started, just blaming the doctors. And I was just angry with myself. And it was that kind of rinse and repeat cycle where I was going through that level of grief of understanding, being angry, being frustrated, being sad, and then forgetting it, and then it's coming back with wave of emotion. So I was just angry with the world, man. Like, no one should ever go through, you know, I would never wish it on my worst enemy, and I don't have an enemy, but yeah, like losing 3 kids in 18 months, it becomes toxic because you're going through all that level of grief, and sometimes you don't understand it when you haven't been through those traumatic experiences. Yeah, for me, I think it was a good year, 2 years where I wasn't myself. I just didn't want to be around anyone. I withdrew from people, wasn't talking, and I was very closed off. So yeah, I was just angry at the world, brother. Like, really, really angry that how could, life done me of not being a father.
Did you ask for help at any time? Did you recognize that you needed help? Did you feel like you weren't worth helping?
Yeah, I didn't ask for any help. That's the thing. Like, I just try to do it on my own. But reflecting, like, I wish I did ask for help. I wish I did speak to, say, a psychologist or a psychiatrist around, what I was going through. Because when family and friends give you advice, like, there's always the statement, everything happens for a reason. And that really got to me. That made me angry. Like, I'm like, how can someone say losing a child, everything happens for a reason? Like, yeah, and like looking back, I wish I got help because then I would be able to explore like tools of using triggers and stuff like that. Seeing newborn babies with their fathers, like that was a trigger. And it's not now anymore because I've obviously done a lot of work on myself. But yeah, I wish back then I got the help that I needed, but I just didn't because I thought I could do it on myself. Like, I think there was a couple of times where I went to call a psychiatrist or get a mental health plan, but I just didn't go ahead with it. I said to people, "Well, yeah, I'm going to go get help," because that's what people wanted to hear. But that's what I thought I could tell people to get them off my back, and I did. But yeah, there were times where I was going to go get help, but then I just decided not to. And then 15 and 16 were the hardest years of my life, but I think it took me up to 2000 and 22, 23, or 21 22 is when I really decided to kind of get some help around what I was going through.
When you look back on that time, were you suicidal?
Definitely, definitely. I reckon I reckon in those manic episodes that I was having, I reckon 4 or 5 times I tried or attempted. Like I tried to, yeah. It's a hard rank because, like, obviously, I've seen a couple of mates take their own lives with suicide, etc. And but yeah, there was about 4 or 5 times in that space of 18 months where I thought about it and I tried, but I never went through with it.
Sorry you went through such a horrendous period, man, and that you were trapped inside yourself throughout it as well. But I think that's a common experience for so many men, and particularly when you're talking about losing children in pregnancy as well, where men feel like they're not the most important thing, not even to do with other people necessarily, but for ourselves, where we think how we're doing doesn't really matter or doesn't really factor into the equation. Like you gotta get up and do whatever you have to do, and no one really wants to hear about it, and it's painful to process anyway, so just push it aside. It seems easier in the moment, or you don't even know how to go about processing it, so you just carry on. But sounds like your story was a classic case of that cup running over and you're not being able to just push through anymore, and eventually
Yeah, it
the,
was
the
like
dam coming apart.
yeah, it was like a band-aid method because I reckon from 2015 to say 2021, not even just losing children like that's like 80% of it, but 2017, I lost a nephew in a car accident. And there was like, it was a court case around it, and I had to stand up and talk on behalf of, you know, his mum and dad. Uh, and then 2018, I lost my grandfather, who was also a father figure. And then 2019, my dad got real sick. He got diagnosed with a brain tumor. Then COVID happened, and then 2020, I lost my dad through COVID. And I was living in Perth at the time. 2020, when I lost my dad, I rushed over to Melbourne, and obviously walking through Melbourne Airport in COVID time was like it was just a ghost town. And then rushing down to see my dad while I was in palliative care, and saying goodbye to him. And then within a week, we had his funeral. And then after his funeral, I headed straight back to Perth and was put in this 2-week quarantine because I visited Melbourne, and I was in a hotel room by myself. So, that period of time from 2015 to 2020 and then 2021, where I lost a couple of more important people in my life, that as much as my children losing my children, but that period of 6 years was crazy. Like I was in this constant cycle of going, I'm like 6 months, oh, I haven't lost anyone, oh, that's great. And then almost putting a jinx on me that I'd lose someone like that. So for 6 years, I was in this cycle of grief that I couldn't even explain to anyone. And I was in this manic episode where I was just like when I lost my kids, I was being someone that I wasn't, because all I wanted to do, all I wanted was people to not abandon me because of losing all those people in those short period of time. And 6 years is a long time, but 6 years in that kind of style of grief and traumatic experiences, it's a short period. So yeah, like for 6 years, man, like, you know, we can talk about my children and stuff like that, and like, but for years after that, I was going through just hell, and I was just not myself. Like, I reckon I've only really come out of it the last 2 years, is actually just being who I am, and yeah, like that's what happened for 6 years, brother. Like I was just in this hell. I was actually in hell of seeing people pass away, losing children, losing my dad, and going through COVID. And COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise where I could recharge a little bit, but I couldn't even recharge because I lost my dad and had to deal with his estate and had to go up against, his partner, which obviously because my mum and dad got a divorce a couple of years prior, so I had to go up against his partner, and she wanted everything and wouldn't leave anything to my sister and I. So yeah, for 6 years, brother, I was just in hell. I can't explain to you who I was as a person. Shell of the person I am now.
Lucky to still be here after going through all that much pain at once and that much loss.
Yeah, man, I'm very lucky. I should be 6 feet under. I really should be 6 feet under because I was at that tipping point. I had one really, really big mental breakdown in 2018 after I lost my nephew and my grandfather, and before my dad got sick. I was curled up into a ball and sent a video to a couple of mates saying that I'm done and that I can't go along anymore, and turned off my phone. Um, yeah, turned off my phone and had 2 packets of Panadol, had 1 packet of Panadol, um, fell unconscious, and then next thing you know, I had, yeah, the police waking me up, literally the police waking me up and taking me to the hospital, and obviously I had to get my stomach pumped. Yeah, like, yeah, that was one of the biggest mental breakdowns I've had, and no one could see it because I wasn't telling anyone. I wasn't speaking. I was just trying to get on with life, and rather than actually, yeah, rather than actually just speaking up, yeah, just thought it was the best way because I felt like no one would care if I had left. I felt like I was just done. I felt like no one would care, no one would cry or anything like that. So it was just easy for me to go.
What did help you eventually? You've gone through so much pain there, nothing's helping. No one knows about it. You're not talking about it. It's just shit fight after shit fight and disaster after disaster. What actually started to do you some good where you started to feel like you were making some progress?
Obviously, that first session of psychiatry, like psychologist work, that kind of really helped me. But what really helped me, and this might sound a bit, I don't know how to put it. When I met my wife, Bobby, obviously Bobby and I have been together for about 2.5 years now, and she's got 4 kids from a previous marriage, 4 boys. Don't I don't know how it happened, but yeah, I started to heal when I met, and this is Bobby's only like 2.5 years later, or 2.5 years ago. That's when I started to heal. As weird as it might sound, kind of started finding my purpose a little bit. Obviously being with Bobby and her 4 boys, and her 4 boys not really knowing their dad that well. And Bobby obviously went through domestic violence herself with her ex partner, and the kids kind of saw that. But as soon as our youngest, August and Lawrence, they're both 10 and 8, started calling me dad. And it was just this surreal moment where it kind of just flicked the switch. And I was still doing, obviously sessions with my psych, etc. For some reason or another, like as soon as I met Bobby and as soon as the 4 boys came into my life, it changed me forever. People might say, how does that change you? I think I've always wanted to be a father. And even though they're not my biological kids, those boys have healed me in ways that I could never imagine. And obviously, Bobby has healed me in ways that I couldn't even imagine when she showed me pure love. Pure love meaning like she's cut down the bullshit. She knows when I'm about to have a bit of a trigger, and she's a calming influence. And yeah, that's when it started to change, is when Bobby and the boys came into my life. And, you know, I can't you know, I can't go away from the fact that I have to always still go to my side, because obviously I can't just rely on Bobby and the boys to kind of give me the tools, because they're not trained professionals. But yeah, that was the biggest turning point in my life. 2.5 years ago is when Bobby and the boys walked into my life and gave me purpose.
That's beautiful, man. And you're not someone who believes everything happens for a reason. You either are or you aren't. So what do you put it down to?
I don't know, man. Yeah, like I know everything. I think when people say everything happens for a reason to a person that's lost a lot, that's not, that's not really not that's not great because when they're going through all this trauma and grief and manic episodes, and people go, everything happened for a reason, it just heightens everything. But if you say everything happens for a reason, while I've been with Bobby and the boys, I'd believe you. I'd actually go, yeah, everything does happen for a reason. But if you said it to me when I was losing my children and my dad and my grandfather and my nephew, I would be like, no, not everything happens for a reason. But yeah, I think maybe going through all that shitstorm, I need to find my peace, and Bobby and the boys have been my peace.
I'm so glad you finally were able to find some peace after all those years of hell, man. You definitely deserve it.
Yeah, yeah, in those years of hell, I lost a lot of people that I cared for, and I lost a lot of people that cared and loved for me because of my manic episodes. Like, I just wasn't myself. I think in my manic episodes, I was lying to a lot of people. I was lying to a lot of people of where I was in life, or say to people, yeah, I've done this for you, but I hadn't because I didn't want that abandonment to come into my life again. So I lost a lot of people because of that impulsiveness of lying, because I just didn't want to show them. I didn't want to. I just wanted them to be in my life forever. So that got me into a lot of trouble.
Have you attempted to repair some of those relationships or have you just left it in the past?
No, definitely. I've reached out to a lot of people, and made amends with a lot of things, and I still have, a few people that I need to contact, and obviously apologize. And I didn't do anything like illegal or anything like that. I just hurt people because I was hurting myself. But yeah, I've re kind of united with kind of reunited with a good mate of mine that I hadn't spoken to for about 5 years, and we've been speaking on and off for probably the last couple of months, and it's been really good. Um, we'll go, how are you going? He goes, how am I going? And I just tell him straight, no beat around the bush. Like, I don't say this is like, I love to. I think when I was going through those 6 years of life, I love people to see a life that I was living. So it's almost like, oh, Zach's got it together, if that makes sense. But yeah, now I just tell people, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I don't make it fluffy anymore. I just tell people, yep, yep, no, I don't want to talk today, or nah, can't do that today. So yeah, for me, like, I've started to repair those relationships, and yeah, I've still got a few people that I need to repair relationships with because obviously I hurt a lot of people when I was hurting myself, and that's not an excuse. So yeah, I'm starting to repair those relationships.
Well, in my book, it takes a real man to own up to that. It's not easy to do. Have you forgiven yourself?
Yeah, I've forgiven myself to a point. Yeah, I have. I've made peace with the mistakes and bad decisions that I made in life, especially with when going through all that like shitstorm that I went through. Yeah, I've made peace with that, and I've also forgiven myself to a point. But until I speak to a lot more people, then I'll kind of forgive myself. And it's not an overnight fix, brother. Like, you know, I've still got years and years and years of growth and years of healing to do. I'm not the finished picture anymore, but I'm on my way to being the person that I've always wanted to be. I'm 35, so it's taken me, 35 years to actually be the person I've always wanted to be, and with lots of ups and downs. So I've still got a lot of things to do in life to be able to forgive myself.
Yeah, well, the important thing is that we're learning as we're going and we're growing and we're moving forward. And everyone has shit in their past or the things they wish they didn't do or did differently. And we all have aspirations for who we want to be. That the important thing is learning from those mistakes and not just making them again and again and again and again forever until you don't get any more chances. So you're definitely doing the right thing. With your last relationship, obviously you went through all those child losses and then went through you really suffering with your mental illness. Is that what ended that relationship?
Yeah, yeah. It was just we were drifting away. Um, Obviously, I just yeah, we were drifting away. Obviously, I made some impulsive decisions, and yeah, we just drifted away. Losing three children, you know, would break any relationship. But yeah, we just drifted away. We called it for what it was, and I'm so very very happy for my ex partner because she's gone on to have a healthy boy. And at first, I was like, "What the hell?" But then now I'm just over the moon for her because she was always going to be a tremendous mother.
Takes a lot of maturity, but I suppose that comes when you have loved someone, you have a lot of regard for them, and then you get to a place where you're healthy again and you're looking after yourself, and you've got your own family. You can look at them and be happy for them because there is that regard for them at the end of the day. And it's funny how things work out, or sometimes it's not funny at all, but you know what I mean. It doesn't work out how you expect to, but it seems to work out in a way that it should, or at least hopefully it does. And it sounds like it has in your case. Where does cooking and the kitchen fit into your story? Because I know that's a big part of things and a big part of what you do now.
Yeah, chefing's always made sense to me, brother. Like I would always get into the kitchen when I was going through some, shitstorm, and it was able to take me away to a better place in life. And the kitchen has always made sense for me. Like my outside world could be going 100 miles an hour, and I might not have it all together in my outside world, but put me in the kitchen, I have it all together. Like it just makes sense. Like everything kind of slows down for me in the kitchen, and I can be myself. Now I think, after meeting Bobby and having the four boys in my life, being in the kitchen now translates to me on the outside as well. So yeah, I've been a chef for 17 years, and obviously on and off, I've had breaks. Like I think everyone does as a chef. Some people have breaks, etc. Yeah, I think with me being a chef for 17 years, um, yeah, it kind of it took me to a whole different world, a whole different place where I think every time I've stepped in the kitchen with all the shit that was going on in my life, I was still able to be myself in the kitchen. And I've always wanted to kind of translate that from the kitchen to the outside world. And it's only been the last 2.5 years I've been able to do that. So yeah, I've been a chef for 17 years, and now I'm traveling Australia doing Indigenous pop-up restaurants. And I love every bit of it.
It's wicked, man. And you say that telling men to talk more isn't always the answer. I mean, obviously, talking is a step in the road, but where does action come into it, do you think, for men? Like, obviously, yours is that the physical act of cooking and being in that environment and allowing your mind to just focus on that task and get into that flow state. What do you think of that for men and the importance of being able to process what we're going through, that we actually find something to do that gives us a space like that?
Yeah, like I think the common thing at the moment is that everyone wants men to talk about what they're going through, and putting pressure on men to do that sometimes has backlash with like that. Say for example, everyone wanted me to talk about what I was going through in those 6 years. Like people said, "Oh, just open up," etc. But when you put more pressure on that person to open up, they're going to retreat. They're going to shut down. They're going to get even more manic because they don't want to talk about it. They're not ready. So I think with me, like I've always said to other men that are going through some stuff, like when you're ready to talk, that's when you're ready to talk. That's when you're ready to use your voice. And I think for me, I found an outlet which was cooking because I've always had cooking in my life. But I think with other men, sometimes we don't find that avenue of what we love to be able to, let everything out and put our kind of energy into that. So yeah, it's a hard one. I think men go through it differently. Men do fight. silently as women, but I think men find it silently because if they have a family, they're going to look to be looked at as a protector, and women are protectors as well. But we've still got that stereotype where men have to be that protector and provider. As much as women, mothers can be protectors and providers, there's always that stereotype of men being protectors and providers. I think with men that can't talk at the moment is just finding a hobby or a passion to put all your energy in, and then when you're ready to talk, you'll talk.
Talking about how you just couldn't talk during that 6 years and people telling you to talk and open up just made it worse. I get that. How could anyone have helped you back then? Because I think it's kind of scary for people to be on the other end of it where you're trying to help someone in a situation like you're in, and talking about it just seems to make it worse or seems to make you retreat even more. You talk about needing to be ready, but is being ready having to get to a rock bottom or potentially like a life-threatening situation? I guess it's different for everyone. Was there anything anyone could have done for you back then that would have actually helped you?
No, no, no one could help me back then. I was a totally different person. Like, people can talk to me now and give me advice, and it'll actually sink in now. But back then, like, you'll say, "Hey mate, how about you do this?" Like, it'll go in one ear, out the other. That's it. Like, no one could help me back then. I was a danger to myself, brother. Like, I didn't even know. Yeah, I was a danger to myself. So if you try to help me, in those spaces of 6 years that I was going through, I'd be like, yeah, 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 I agree with you because that's what you wanted to hear, and that's what I wanted you to hear. But I wouldn't take any notice of what you were saying. I would just say what you wanted to hear. Yeah, so no one could have helped me. Like, I probably had to hit rock bottom, and I did a few times to actually try and build up the courage to go get help. Um, yeah, but no one could have helped me for those 6 years, bro. Like, you say something, goes in one ear, out the other, and I'm just being open and honest now where people are like, surely people could have gotten through to it. Hell no. For 6 years, I didn't know who I was. I wasn't Zach. I was just in this just absolute manic thing. I wasn't Zach. I wasn't Zach. I've only really started to be Zach the last 2, 3 years.
Do you think you probably should have been admitted to a psych ward or something like that?
Rehab, yeah, definitely. I think if I was forced to do rehab in a mental health facility, it'll be a whole different chat right now. Yeah, I think there was times where I wanted that because I just couldn't stop here, and I couldn't stop it. But yeah, if someone had forcibly took me to a rehab clinic for my mental health, it'd be a whole different conversation right now. But that whole different conversation, right? I probably wouldn't be in Port Hedland. I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't have my 4 boys. So in the end, strange things happen, and I've kind of started to find my own healing and peace. But yeah, like, if someone had forcibly taken me to a rehab, but you got to remember too, 6 years ago, like, mental health was still looked upon as you had a real, like, it was shame. It was an issue. Like, oh, he's got a problem, like, all that kind of stuff. But say if it was happening to me now, 6 years, all those things that happened 6 years ago was happening to me now, I think it'll be a whole different story because if people had forced me to go to rehab now, if I was going through that same stuff, it wouldn't be looked at as an issue or a problem. It would be looked at as, we need to help this young man.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's good to know that we're making progress. I think generally, culturally, we're making some progress there where I think more people these days would say what you've said, where it seems more appropriate now to come forward and say, I'm struggling with whatever it might be. And you don't just get branded with the tag of, oh, they're crazy or whatever other word people might use. So I think even though we're not seeing this suicide statistics going down yet, I think there are signs of progress and improvement that are promising, and we should be encouraged by, because people who are in the depths of despair like that and really can't manage their own lives, they should not come forward with a large factor in that being shame and fear of judgment of what people are are going to think, because a lot of people don't make it through that time. And you're fortunate that you did. You obviously have got a very strong willpower as well. But yeah, lots of people who go through pain like that and suffering like that don't make it out the other side. So I think it's positive that we're building towards a culture that's more accepting of that.
Yeah, I think so too, brother. Like, I think with life now is more accepting. I think especially after COVID. COVID was 5 years ago, but a lot of people went through mental health challenges in COVID because of lockdowns and quarantines. And I think that was one of the biggest blessings in disguise with COVID, is that people started to really look into mental health and understand, it is an issue in here in Australia. And I guess with mental health, like, you know, knowing a lot of people, myself being, a First Nations man, and seeing a lot of people in remote communities, like young men, struggle still because there's not a lot of help in remote communities when it comes for young men or even young women. You probably get a program up there once in a blue moon for mental health. But now, yeah, I think that's my goal at the moment is, a lot of my pop-ups this year, I'm donating a lot of my proceeds to 1-3 Yarn to be able to make mental health accessible in remote communities. So yeah, maybe in the urban areas like the major cities, mental health is more like accessible, but we still have a long way to go in remote communities when it comes to our young Aboriginal men in remote communities, because, some of the regional towns to access mental health is 6 to 7 hour drive, and some remote communities don't even have phone reception. They've only got Wi-Fi.
Generally speaking, how do you think mental health is discussed and viewed within those Indigenous communities? I know there's a lot of them and you only have your own experience, but just generally compared to non-Indigenous people, how's mental health viewed and discussed?
There is a bit of a shame factor still. Yeah, there's still a bit of a shame factor. But also at the same time, I think a lot of young men and young Aboriginal people don't know where to go. Because, yeah, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do and how to go get help. And then sometimes it becomes too late for especially young men in remote communities. The statistics are through the roof when it comes to young Aboriginal men taking their own lives because there's not enough resources. So if you say, for example, if you go to any like rural remote Aboriginal community, English is their fifth language. A lot of people think, like there are so many different dialects within different Indigenous remote communities that people don't actually realize. So a lot of young men, English is their fifth language. And yes, there are translators in those communities, but some of these resources aren't even in their language. Yeah, there's going to be a lot more resources when it comes to remote Aboriginal communities for sure.
Do you feel like you're taking that on as a bit of a personal quest now, having gone through what you've gone through and got to this point, and now you've got your own family, you've got what you've always wanted in lots of ways, and you do what you love for a living? How much a part of your life is this want to try to help people with their mental health?
A lot, because I don't want to see people go through what I went through, which was hidden for a long period of time, and make mistakes that I made when I was going through those manic episodes. Um, but like, let's get real here. Putting a lot of my effort through my pop-up restaurants to raise kinds of awareness. But I think, I want people to come on that journey with me and, see that and actually understand that there's a lot more we could do for mental health in remote regional Aboriginal communities. And I can't do it by myself, because if I do it by myself, then I'm going to be back to where I started, which I'll burn myself out. I'll get back into a different kind of hole, not a traumatic hole, but more of like a burnout hole where I'll start to have my mental health challenges again. As much as I would like to do it on my own, I can't do it on my own. And I think that's one thing that I've come to agreements with myself. I can't do everything on my own. And I always need to ask for help or support when it comes to any of these things.
How are you working that mental health message into your cooking and the experiences that you create? Like, where do these all intersect?
I tell my personal story about mental health. I tell my story. So I tell like I think when people want to learn about Aboriginal culture or Torres Strait Islander culture, as much as I can't really speak about Torres Strait Islander culture because I'm not Torres Strait, For me, I've always said when an Aboriginal person tells their personal story, you get a better connection to, say, Aboriginal culture. You understand it a little bit more rather than sitting on, you know, Google and Googling Aboriginal culture. Personal story is always a big connector. And for me, my mental health story can always be that big connector to go, hey, this is what I dealt with. This is what I went through. And then I say, look, a lot of these communities up north, a lot of young men are going through exactly maybe the same things that I went through or different things, but there are no resources up there. There's nothing up there. Yes, there are medical clinics, but imagine you are a young Aboriginal man and you're wanting to ask for help, but you don't know who to go to. You go to a medical clinic and it's all your family that's running the medical clinic. So imagine a young man going to a medical clinic and saying to his auntie, or to his say mother-in-law, to his sister that are the nurse practitioners, which may I say is bloody great. It's good to see the community people running those medical clinics. But imagine if you have a mental health issue and you go to that medical clinic and you're talking to your mum or your sister-in-law about what you're going through. It doesn't work. There's people like talking to a family member and going, hey, on the outside without paying for it. So, yeah, I think for me, if my story can resonate with a lot of people out there and a lot of Aboriginal men, I hope one day that we can see the resources in communities where it helps those young Aboriginal men overcome what they're going through.
Yeah, you really need to have that anonymity to be able to speak to someone who's just totally not involved in your life. That's why therapy's such an important space for people, because they don't, bar caring about you as a client, they're not actively involved in your life. Sometimes we need that person who's just totally indifferent. With your therapy now, you mentioned that you went every week for a long time. Obviously, you're doing pretty well in life now compared to where you were at. What's your stance on therapy? Is that something that you access when you feel like you need to, or do you still do it really
Yeah.
regularly?
No, when I feel like I'm about to kind of like everything's starting to pile up, I'll reach out to my psych and have a bit of a one-on-one session. Yeah, it really helps me that I'm able to say email her and go, hey, do you have an appointment in the next couple of days? I really need to talk. I really need to understand what's happening. And yeah, I have that appointment. So yeah, I still have that therapy one-on-one session when I like really need it. And that's really big for me too, brother. Like for me, yeah, like I never used to do that. I never used to reach out to someone that when I reach out to a therapy or reach out to my psych when I really needed the help. Look, I just try to do it by myself. But now I understand my triggers. Like dates are really big for me. So, for example, leading up, obviously Elijah was born and passed away on the 21st of June. And then Zane was born and passed away on the 21st of September. And then my dad passed away on the 16th of May. And then obviously Christmas Day is massive for me as well. So when those are massive triggers for me. So when I feel like it's getting like that's when I reach out to my psych and go, hey, I need a one-on-one chat. It's urgent.
What got you into that first psych session? Because you never even considered going, and it wasn't for you at all. Did someone drag you in there, or did you put yourself in there? How did you first access therapy?
Something clicked one day, like, and I was just I don't know, like something clicked one day. I'm like, I need to go see a psych. I mean, I did, and then like, don't get me wrong. As soon as I was driving there, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna call up saying I'm sick. But I, for some reason, up here was like, nah, you're going, you're going, you're going, you're going, you're going. So I went, and then as soon as I went, I was like, why didn't I do this years ago? Why didn't I do this years ago? So it was myself, man. Like, obviously, everyone was pushing me to do it, but it was just me that decided I'm gonna wake up one day and go see a psych, and I did. And it was probably the best thing that bet one of the best decisions in my life that I've made.
Yeah, I think you described something that heaps of men have when they're thinking about therapy where it's like, no way, never consider it, not for me, and then often go and try it out and find like, oh, actually that wasn't that bad. I mean, sometimes you still have horror stories or people that you don't gel with and you have to go and try again and find someone else. But often you go and it's like lots of things in life. You build it up a lot in your head and you're like, this is going to be some Freudian dude lying on I'm going to lie on a long couch and he's going to be there with a kerchief and a bow tie and he's just going to judge me on all my past mistakes. And then it's not like that at all. And if you can actually bite the bullet and go find a way to do it when you really need to, then it can make all the difference. So not for absolutely for everyone, but you're a really strong example of someone who it's been massively helpful for. So I think it's good for people to see that.
Yeah, man. Like I didn't actually realize that that was probably the first time in my entire life that I've sat there for a good 50 minutes because obviously sessions go for 50 minutes. Um, that was the first time in my life where I've just opened up. Like, yeah, there has been times where I've opened up on stage and stuff like that when I'm doing like talks and stuff like that. But that was the first time that I opened up to someone that wasn't, say, for example, like I never had opened up ever like that to my mum or my dad when my dad was alive or even any partners. So, for example, like, yeah, it was just, I went there and just, it was like just, it was vomit, word vomit, sentence vomit. Everything was coming out. And I went away and I'm like, it's like, far out, man. I was like, I've never done that before. So, yeah, like that first session was just an eye opener where I just let everything out and then got back in my car and I was like, it was like a weight off my shoulders. And I just said, why didn't I do that? Like I might not be in the position that I am now if I went to therapy. So yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes it takes going and doing it to realize that it's not what you thought it was. So with your kids now, like they obviously, well, not obviously, sorry, they seem to feel that hole inside of you that resulted as a because of those losses that you had. Do you feel whole now as a dad and as a man with what you have in your life? It sounds like you got a lot.
Yeah. Like they feel a hole. Yeah, like obviously I would Bobby and I have been talking about having our own child and stuff like that, but I think I'm just lucky at the moment to have four boys, like to kind of be there, be present in their life. So yeah, they definitely fill a hole. But obviously, if Bobby and I decide to have another child, have a child of our own, obviously that kind of just fills the hole of having my own child, if that makes sense, like biological child. So, but nah, these boys, I love my boys. Like they keep me on my toes every day. They're all four of them have all got different personalities, and I think the surreal moment was when our 16-year-old that I had a tough relationship when Bobby and I first got on our wedding day. After Bobby and I said I do, uh, Sebastian came up to me and said, "Now I can call you dad." And it was just that surreal moment where I was like, yeah, I was like, this is what fatherhood's all about. It doesn't matter if, they're not my blood or I'm not biological their father. The love I give them, the love they give me is what fatherhood's all about. So yeah, they definitely have filled the hole, and obviously, if Bobby and I go down that track of having another child, so that fills a different kind of hole. But yeah, these boys are yeah. I If we don't go down that path, it doesn't really matter because these boys are my sons now, and I would do nothing to ever change that because they have healed me in so many ways that I never would have thought.
Beautifully said. And with four of them, you probably got enough on your hands as it is.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, Bobby and I do as well. I mean, it's also at the same time like we're also dealing with unique children as well. Like, not I wouldn't say unique, but Sebastian, our 16-year-old, is autistic. Lawrence is autistic. Our second youngest. Our youngest has ADHD, and then our second oldest, Zenna, he's totally different altogether. Like he doesn't have ADHD. He's very independent. So we're dealing with with our 4 boys with all different needs. Yeah, it's every day is a new day. And I've had to understand autism as well myself because I got diagnosed a couple of years ago with level 1 being autistic too. So I've had to understand these boys' needs as much as mine as well. But that's a change now because I don't just think of their needs, I also need to think of my needs as well too. Yeah, like having those 4 boys, they keep me on my toes, but I can guarantee they've all got different needs, and I've had to learn a lot about autism and how that affects a young kid as well. So there's been a lot of learnings with our 4 boys.
And you've learned that you have to look after yourself and check in on yourself and make sure you're doing all right. Otherwise, none of this is going to work.
Yeah, I have to. Like, I think Bobby and I have come up with a good routine. Say for a couple of hours, a week, I go for a walk, or you know, I go do something for myself, or just relax or have a sleep. Yeah, and we worked out that that's how we need to look after ourselves as well. As much as our boys need our help, we kind of realise that too. That we've also got to look after ourselves as well. Because Bobby and I are very busy people, but we also have to look after ourselves to even be parents. So yeah, but one thing I've also realised as well, like Mum back in the day said I was like a little bit of a pig, you know, in my rooms and stuff like that, and I can guarantee you that this is like these boys too. Like I've realized what my mum actually meant all those years ago because I love my boys dearly, but I've realized that, young boys can be like little pigs. Like I reckon every Sunday I go into our boys' rooms and I find like 10 or 15 cups. And I'm like, well, that's where all the cups have gone. And then I go to ask them, I'm like, why don't you just use one cup? And they're like, oh, I couldn't find the others. I was like, yeah, because it's in your bloody room. Like, seriously. Like there'll be bowls and stuff like that. I'm like, how can you not take it out to the sink? And then I've realized, man, when I was a kid, I was doing the same thing. Like, as much as like I'm a Grinch, I've realized like I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I was back then. I was that. So yeah, so it's an interesting time in our house.
So, Zach, for any man out there who might be grappling with the loss of a child during pregnancy or some of the things that you've been through, but especially that, what could you say to them?
Sitting your emotions. Yeah. Sitting your grief, sitting your emotions. Don't think you have to hide your emotions. Just be your vulnerable self when you're going through stuff like this. Because I wasn't. I tried to hide it for most of the time. So yeah, just sit in those emotions. That's all I can say. If you allow yourself to sit in those emotions and be vulnerable rather than just trying to put a band-aid over it, you'll come out. It's a different journey then.
Well, for a man who refused to talk just a few short years ago, you've come a very long way now, man. And I think you're setting a really good example for your kids and for a lot of men out there as well by being so forthcoming. And I really appreciate it because I know it is difficult to talk about even when you're reflecting on stuff that happened years ago. It does dredge it up, and it's not easy to do. So we really appreciate you being able to come forward and do that. And yeah, uh, wishing you all the best with continuing with your healing process and also with your advocacy and everything that you're doing now to try to help other people not go through something similar to what you went through. I think making progress in mental health with our society, it comes down to lots of people all around Australia and the world doing their own little bit to try and help, and that real grassroots approach right down to how we act in our families and friendship groups and as parents, and then in the work that we do that is ultimately going to add up and make the difference. And you're bringing light and love and creativity and helping people in what you're doing, and I admire that, man. So hats off to you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. It's taken me a while to get where I am, but it's only upward and up now. Yeah. I appreciate for having me on the podcast and yeah, having a bit of a yarn about different things in my life and what's happened in my life. So I do appreciate it.
Zach, where can people find more of you?
Storyteller Chef. I'm a Storyteller Chef on Instagram. You may refer. see all my shindigs that I'm doing across Australia. That's probably the main source at the moment, and TikTok as well, but more Instagram because it's showing my cooking journey, and I have a lot of my family stuff on there as well.
Wicked, man. Thank you.
No worries, brother. All good.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we're all about, support us by following Youngblood Men's Mental Health on Instagram and Youngblood Mental Health on TikTok. Every podcast episode is recorded in professional quality video, and they're all up on our Youngblood Men's Mental Health YouTube channel. So please show some love and subscribe. You can find everything there is to know about the podcast at youngbloodmensmentalhealth.com. And most importantly, please share these stories with anyone in your life who needs to know they're not alone. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.